رفيعي المستوى الذين نتشرف بمشاركتهم معنا اليوم، بداية من فخامة السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي رئيس جمهورية مصر العربية.
His Excellency President George Vella, the President of Malta.
فخامة السيد الرئيس
His Excellency Klaus Johannes, the President of Romania.
فخامة السيد الرئيس
His Excellency President Ivan Duque, the President of Colombia.
فخامة السيد الرئيس
His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, the President of Zambia.
معالي السيد قاسم
His Excellency Mr. Qasim Majaliwa, the Prime Minister of Tanzania.
سعادة السيدة شمة المزروعي
Her Excellency Mrs. Shamma Al-Mazroui, the Minister of Youth in the United Arab Emirates. Mr. Fu Jinbang, the Vice President of Chinese Youth Association, on behalf of President Xi Jinping, the President of China. Mr. Miguel Moratinos, the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and the High Commissioner for the United Nations Organization for Alliance of Civilizations. His Excellency Ambassador Jonathan Cohen, the Ambassador of the United States of America in Egypt.
الحضور الكريم بقدر معاناة العالم خوفا وتباعدا، كانت الجائحة باب انذار وأمل بالنسبة للعديد من القضايا التي وحدت الإنسانية بأسرها، ولذلك نجتمع مرة أخرى لنتحاور من أجل خلق مساحة الإنسانية المشتركة تجمع الشباب من كل بلاد العالم وتعزز تكامل الحضارات، مساحة عنوانها بناء مستقبل ما بعد كورونا، لنؤكد أننا قادرون على تخطي الصعاب والمضي نحو عالم أفضل.
الوضع المعتاد الجديد، هكذا يوصف عالمنا اليوم ما بعد الجائحة، بعد أن تحطمت ركائز قديمة لن تعود، وبزغت الملامح لعالم جديد هو قيد التشكل، نتيجة باتت حتمية لجائحة تعددت أوصافها، فتارة توصف بأنها تحدياً قاسياً أمام أنظمة الرعاية الصحية في العالم كله، وتارة توصف بأنها الفرصة العظيمة لتطبيقات تكنولوجية كانت هي طوق النجاة في ظل الأزمة. وما بين كونها جائحة وضعت جميع الاقتصادات والسياسات أمام اختبار حاسم، أو كونها إنذاراً مبكراً لكوارث قد تأتي أشد وأكثر قسوة، تبقى النتيجة واحدة لجائحة وحدت الجميع دولاً وشعوباً وأفراداً أمام المعاناة. وسواء كانت الجائحة بداية جديدة أم هدنة مما كنا عليه، فهي وقفة أكيدة من أجل مراجعة سياساتنا بعناية، خطوات قادمة نكمل بها مسارات تنموية كنا قد بدأناها. وها نحن بصدد الوضع المعتاد الجديد لعالم ما بعد الجائحة، حيث تتوازى الفرص مع التحديات جنباً إلى جنب، ووحدها فقط اختياراتنا هي التي ستحدد مصائرنا في هذا العالم الجديد. وإن كنا نحتفل في بداية كل عام جديد ببداية تمنحها لنا الحياة، نكاشف فيها أنفسنا بما حققناه وما أخفقنا فيه وما نحن بعازمين على مراجعته. فها نحن قد نجونا جميعاً من جائحة كادت تقضي علينا وعلى مستقبل أوطاننا، ونحن الآن أكثر امتناناً وعرفاناً لمنحة البدايات، خاصة وإن كانت بداية جديدة للبشرية كلها. هي الفرصة والأمل الجديد كي تتضافر جهودنا باسم الإنسانية ومن أجلها.
A new opportunity for our efforts to be concerted under the name of the humanity and for the name of the humanity. Recovery from the pandemic witnessed in our new world is opportunity to discover new opportunities of cooperation and confrontations through a methodology that will adopt the voices of youth with the man in the heart. Here, our dear guests are gathering to discuss the title of this session, Corona Pandemic, a warning for the humanity and a new hope. Of course, every country has its specificity in confronting the pandemic. Egypt could continue its production and carrying on with its mega projects and national projects while maintaining and developing the healthcare system. His Excellency President Abdelfattah El-Sisi, the President of Egypt, we would like to know from you the Egyptian experience and how the healthcare protection plans could help in fighting this pandemic. Thank you very much. In the name of Allah, allow me to welcome you all again. Let me address you by an introduction on Corona pandemic. In fact, it has been a great challenge that faced the whole humanity, the biggest in the modern age. And indeed, it posed complex challenges, a complexity of social, economic, and political challenges throughout the past 2 years. We have always been saying that from every ordeal, a gift come out. The repercussions of the pandemic so far, such as the disruption of whole sectors in abundance of countries, full closures in some, sectors have stopped, such as the airports and transportations and tourism, while other sectors have been damaged. We thought that the damages shall be limited to dozens of thousands, and the losses shall be limited. We thought of dozens of thousands, yet, to our own surprise, the losses skyrocketed. Millions, dozens of millions, hundreds of millions. Infections and losses also skyrocketing. Millions have been lost. In Egypt, what kind of situation did we have? To speak to you about the circumstances and how we could address the challenge, we have to speak from two perspectives, the perspective of healthcare and the perspective of economy. Let me talk to you about the healthcare in the beginning. In 2017, 18, and 19, the state of Egypt used to launch initiatives to address the file of the public health in Egypt, on top of which came the hepatitis C file. When we started our program and pursued it, we explored how can we make a survey for the NCDs, such as diabetes and obesity. We have achieved a lot in this program, and this helped us a lot. After being one of the top countries throughout the world in hepatitis C rates, we have been certified by WHO as being one of the least countries throughout the world. Let's imagine together what would happen if Egypt had faced this pandemic with this magnitude, with the people infected with hepatitis C. Can you imagine the number of losses? 10%, 20%? Such as the chronic diseases or virus C. What I wish to tell you in brief, the initiatives that we had for the health case improvement resulted in a better envisioning of the health map of Egypt and eradicating number of endemic diseases in Egypt that would have affected the number of losses should we have had it until now during the pandemic. After 2019, we came out from these initiatives with a health capacity that is good to face the pandemic in much better way. This is what we had concerning the healthcare system in Egypt. Like any other country, whenever they put estimates for the size of the pandemic according to their own healthcare systems, some countries decided to have full closure, while other countries decided to have partial closure. We started a strategy of partial closure and maintaining the precautionary measures to help ourselves face this disease as much as possible. Indeed, the results and outcomes that we have achieved in number of infections and the number of recoveries compared to other countries are very positive. This is what we had in terms of the healthcare system. What we have done helped us a lot to be resilient facing the pandemic. How about the economy? In November 2016, we started an economic reform program. I believe that without such a hard economic program, it was hard, indeed, hard to the people of Egypt. I believe that without such a program, our situation would have been worsened a lot, much worsened. We have finalized this program starting in November 2016. The first phase has concluded and we started the second phase. This provided the preparedness and resilience for the Egyptian economy. And by the way, we have been working while working on the economy. We have started number of national mega projects so we can achieve the aspired development and the aspired growth rates and to prepare the state to start a new future. Back then, it was quite possible to decide to stop fully all our economic activities. Yet, we decided to maintain our work rates in the projects that we have started, while at the same time adopt the utmost precautionary measures to avoid the bad impacts of the COVID. Have we been impacted? Of course, we have been affected in the aviation sector, in the tourism sector. However, the government moved in parallel with economic initiatives targeting a momentum to be given to the Egyptian economy so we can make up and secure the state in this phase. The result, I wish not to forget that we had informal and irregular labors, that we have covered them with financial subsidies to help them secure their livelihoods in such circumstances. However, we haven't stopped our work before, during, and even now. On the contrary, we have launched Haya Karima, which is a project that targets 60 million people in the Egyptian countryside. Haya Karima, or dignity, a dignified life, aims at addressing the negative setbacks of poverty.
No doubt that poverty really escalated. This happened in the whole world. So in Egypt, we launched another program with a value of between 600 to 700 Egyptian billion pounds over the course of 3 years. This started from this fiscal year with the aim to continue thriving economy. As I told you before, we are among those few countries which achieved good growth rate, 3.6 during 2019-2020 and 3.3% growth rate during 2021. And I assume that plenty of countries were not able to do the same. So, in a nutshell, and out of our experience in facing COVID-19 is that, of course, indeed, it is an ordeal, but ordeal can breed plenty of opportunities. And I think that there is a magnificent momentum felt in the field of science, technology, dealing with vaccinations, health systems. All that put us to test. Pandemic has put all these things to test, and this taught us how to exchange ideas, how to develop our health systems to make them more effective in facing such calamities. I assume that each and every country has its own specificity in dealing and in addressing such crises in accordance with several considerations in regards to its own internal context. In conclusion, I'd like to tell you something. I always perceive this virus as if it communicates a message saying, "Oh people, oh humanity, make heed. You are not able to defy us or to challenge us." Thanks a lot. Indeed, there is a continuous and seamless pursuit to overcome this pandemic. Now I will give the floor to His Excellency, President of Malta. He will be speaking to us about the most important tool to overcome this pandemic. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, dear participants, let me start first of all by thanking His Excellency President El-Sisi for the invitation extended to me to address this youth forum. The organization of this wide-ranging event, placing youth at the center of upcoming discussions, is a breath of fresh air in an otherwise bleak global scenario shaped by a pandemic. I see that you all come from different countries, fields of expertise and cultural backgrounds. And I find this to be an excellent example of how the global community should be addressing the several challenges affecting us all through open and inclusive dialogue that embraces diversity. The themes that you will be discussing during this forum, ranging from the post-COVID recovery to the role of women, global stability and peace, climate change, water security, energy, and the future of technology are most timely and topical. I am sure the outcome of your debates will contribute significantly to the broader international exchanges at the political level. Dear participants, The past 2 years have led to an unprecedented global crisis, which calls upon all of us to pause and reflect, not only on the severe health and economic consequences that COVID has brought on us all, but also on the deeply rooted, concatenated disruptions it has brought to our very own existence. On today's occasion, it is fitting that we focus in particular on the impact it had on the younger generations. Millions of children have come face to face with the devastating effects of the pandemic through the psychological impact suffered through loss or serious illness of a close relative. Others were exposed to severe food shortages and hunger. Others to much-needed medical equipment and shortages of medical drug supplies. For countless others, the pandemic brought with it physical and mental isolation. For the more fortunate, who before the pandemic had access to regular schooling, there were considerable repercussions, mostly through disruptions, not only in the academic sphere, but most importantly in the loss of social interaction with dear ones and friends. While online schooling at all levels, primary, secondary, and tertiary, was a welcome solution to keep studies not being interrupted, it is a far cry from the in-class level of understanding and interaction with both the educators and fellow classmates. Children, especially those too young to understand, have all been exposed to an unprecedented sense of fear, of losing a relative, of getting sick themselves, or of being stuck in a gloomy routine for months. The same sense of helplessness was felt by our youth and young adults who at the height of energy and enthusiasm have had to suddenly pull back the brakes on their normal active lives. The dramatic effects of lockdowns and restrictions on their mental health should not be underestimated. We will need to keep these considerations clearly in view when we discuss a comprehensive post-COVID recovery. And I am pleased to see that one of the panel discussions is entirely dedicated to behavioral and psychological implications of a post-pandemic world. Let us be realistic. The situation was already a precarious one for millions and millions around the globe, suffering from poverty and struggling to survive against all odds. The pandemic made things worse for further millions of people. We simply cannot turn our backs on the poor and on the more vulnerable around us. The global family calls on us to identify a post-pandemic recovery based on all 17 Sustainable Development Goals as enshrined in the 2030 Agenda. This will need to be based on a large-scale health response, including accelerated work towards availability of vaccines, diagnostics, and effective and efficient healthcare systems that assure good quality treatment and medical attention to everyone, everywhere. At the same time, we cannot ignore the adverse socio-economic, humanitarian, and human rights effects of the pandemic. And lastly, we have to plan a recovery that builds back and sustains an international transportation system that protects and guarantees a regular and efficient delivery of goods and products worldwide. A system that can protect and deliver on essential products and materials. Most importantly, trust and not confrontational and unilateral decisions will have to prevail in a manner international affairs are conducted. Trust in each other's intentions and capabilities, and trust in the benefits of multilateral solidarity. This brings me to another issue, which I have followed very closely since the beginning of the pandemic, and that is the subsequent production of vaccines. It is the glaring disparity in the access to vaccines between the haves and the have-nots around the globe. Pragmatically speaking, the world cannot expect to rid itself of this virus unless and until all countries and peoples have equal guaranteed access to vaccines. Yet, as we all know, access to vaccines is far from being guaranteed to millions and millions of people. This is not only a matter of statistics and science. It is a reality which hurts. This situation makes us reflect on our collective moral duty. As citizens of the world, we have a duty to see that no one is left behind. In this context, I'm pleased to point out that even in the face of limited supplies, Malta punched above its weight and actually on various occasions distributed protective clothing and vaccines for free to other nations and peoples. All of you, representing our global youth, have a role to play in instilling a greater sense of global solidarity throughout your actions. I reiterate this message as often as possible, and especially when addressing young generations. This was what motivated me to organize the Young Mediterranean Voices initiative in 2016, together with the then High Representative of the European Union and the Anna Lindh Foundation. Together, we convened the Mediterranean Forum that was held in Malta's capital, Valletta. The initiative was very similar to the one we are holding today. It was based on open exchanges regarding several issues and challenges facing the Mediterranean region. This was all-round agreement that ultimate solutions rested on dialogue, on tolerance, and on mutual understanding. My presidency is proud to act as a platform for young voices, eager to make themselves heard and to bring about positive and long-term change, be it in the environmental, educational, and intercultural spheres. From my own experience, I urge the older generation and youth alike to engage better and more directly in intergenerational cooperation on issues of common interest. Young and old, we are equal partners in this global effort to promote dialogue towards the attainment of ecological cooperation, security, prosperity, and peace. And I conclude with a final appeal to all of you. When you are back in your countries and in your daily routines, ensure that in your debates and discussions, you practice and promote a culture of persuasion rather than that of coercion and confrontation, based on informed arguments and mutual respect for the opinions of others. That way, hopefully, you will be able to influence policy and democratically bring peoples and nations together rather than creating division and distrust. Besides, do ensure that there will be no place in your hearts or in your minds for hate, for xenophobia, ostracism, racism, or exclusion based on ethnicity, creed, gender, or any other motive. Let this be your footprint for the present and your legacy for the future. I wish you all successful deliberations. Thank you for listening.
شكرا فخامة رئيس جمهورية مالطا.
Thank you, Mr. President. President George Villa, the President of Villa. The young generation represent the present and the future. Of course, unemployment and poverty can be felt after this pandemic. Romania played a vital role in giving a helping hand to youth during this pandemic. Now we'll give the floor to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Romania.
Dear President El-Sisi, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to join you in this important event. The World Youth Forum has become an important element of the international youth movement and offers young people an important civic venue for participation as the young generation, like all of us, is facing the consequences of the pandemic. We often hear that our youth is our future. We have to fully realize the vital role of young generations in the shaping development of our societies and in responding to the current challenges. To address such challenges, the Romanian government is preparing a new national strategy on youth, 2022 to 2027, focused on youth empowerment, education, increasing youth employment, and the active participation of young people in economic, social, cultural, and political life. Romania also endorsed the European Union Youth Strategy for 2019-2027 and supported the active participation of the youth in the Conference on the Future of Europe, having as starting points priority topics young people want the European Union to focus on, namely, first, education and skills, mainly digital skills. Second, protection of the environment and the fight against climate change. Third, employment. And fourth, the management of migration. Romania will also bring its contribution to the European Year of Youth 2022 with concrete projects and public debates intended to offer young people a much-needed post-pandemic perspective. I want to underline the major role played by young people in the efforts to build and sustain peace as a right and a democratic imperative in making our societies more inclusive. Romania values the resilience of young people in facing conflict and violence. Young people strive for peace and should be given meaningful opportunities to play a role in this field. This requires inclusive political systems, quality education at primary, secondary, and tertiary levels, including in refugee and displaced settings, and dignified employment opportunities. I wish you a successful forum. Thank you.
نذهب أيضاً الآن إلى كلمة من فخامة رئيس.
Now we will give the floor to His Excellency, the President of Colombia.
Quiero motivo de celebración que se pueda volver a llevar a cabo este foro, que se suspendió los últimos 2 años por esta pandemia que ha afectado a todos los escenarios de la humanidad. Ahora, más que nunca, es necesario resaltar la importancia de ustedes los jóvenes, de sus ideas, sus talentos y su liderazgo en un mundo que atraviesa cambios acelerados. En Colombia, por ejemplo, llevamos a cabo el 5 de diciembre del año pasado las elecciones de los consejos municipales de juventud, donde se eligieron más de 10.800 consejeros entre 14 y 28 años para ser representantes de los jóvenes y tener un papel aún más activo en la democracia colombiana. Esto, al igual que la educación, es fundamental para que las políticas públicas reflejen los intereses y las preocupaciones de los jóvenes. Por eso le destinamos al sector educativo.
The major concerns and how to allocate the budget in the Colombian history. And of course, we did not stop our efforts, and we exerted a lot of efforts in order to mingle young people in our policies and in decision making. And we focused on education and the quality of education, which is very important. We also try to provide the needs and the requirements of young people who are in the core and the heart of our nation. And of course, it's very important the future that we build should focus on young people, their participation, their contributions, as they are the new generation who will build our future. And we are looking forward to have a more peaceful life after post the pandemic. And of course, it's very important to work And also, we decided this year that 30% of the land that we are living is a well-protected land. 30% of the Colombians will be living in a well-protected areas, and we will build these kind of reservations and natural reservations for today, tomorrow, and for years to come. We have to defend our youth and to be in the heart of our nations in order to save and protect the future of these generations. Without that, we have to build future and protect our young people and to build their capacities to be part and parcel of the coming future. To His Excellency the President of Zambia,
of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear youth, allow me first and foremost to express my sincere gratitude to His Excellency President El-Sisi for extending an invitation to me to participate in the 4th edition of the World Youth Forum. I take this opportunity to congratulate the many youth gathered here today for being a part of this forum and using the power of theater to express themselves. As I begin my remarks, I want to acknowledge that the youth are important agents of change. Our election for the presidency of Zambia is testimony to this fact. You will recall that Zambia held its presidential and parliamentary elections on the 12th of August 2020, where the youth of Zambia turned up in overwhelming numbers to cast their votes for change. The voices of the youth indeed matter, and we believe in their meaningful participation in national development. We appreciate the opportunity that this forum presents in not only promoting engagement, but allowing us to gain from the energy, creativity, and insight of our youth from across the world. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you may wish to note that as a country, Zambia has prioritized the youth in our developmental agenda, as we believe the youth are the driving force to social and economic development. Zambia remains committed to transforming our business environment in order to increase the participation of our citizens, particularly the youth, in the economic affairs of the nation. We have restructured government portfolio functions to bring the arts, sport, and youth into one coordination mechanism. We believe that this will enable us to maximize the impact and benefits derived from the youth and art-oriented programs. According to the latest labor force survey, Zambia has over 10,000 youth involved in the arts, recreation, and entertainment sectors. Our government will therefore pursue policies and interventions that will enhance opportunities for the young people to contribute to the sustainable development of our country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in recent years, the arts and cultural industry has evolved and has shown great potential. In recognition of this potential, we are committed to developing and implementing the inaugural Arts Development Policy, which aims to review key sector legislation in order to strengthen arts and culture in our country. Through this policy, government will engage the private sector in order to strengthen the capacity of creative enterprise, job creation, as well as to contribute to the growth of the economy. Further to these structural changes undertaken in the arts and culture sector, our government has created new ministries, which include the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprise Development, the Ministry of Technology and Science, the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, which all aim to create opportunities for the youth. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with regard to the promotion of cultural diversity, Zambia approved the ratification of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, International Convention for the Protection and Promotion of Expression of Cultural Diversity. The ratification of this international instrument is an indication of Zambia's commitment to the promotion of arts and culture. It is therefore our hope that this convention will provide a platform for the youth through the creation of opportunities for safeguarding their artistic expressions and enhancing the role played by the youth and civil society in the governance of the country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I wish to urge the youth from around the world to stand up and take advantage of the various opportunities that the world has to offer. I therefore encourage the participants of the World Youth Forum to use this platform not only to share ideas and collaborate, but also to engaging decision makers. Your ideas and opinions matter to us, and we are indeed listening. Finally, I urge our youth to turn the many words and resolutions to be passed at this important forum into action. Remember to embody the change that you want to see in the world. I thank you.
الحضور الكريم، تابعنا قمة المناخ COP 26.
August gathering, we followed the climate summit, and it's still an alarming tool for the climate change. And we have, in fact, pledges from developed countries, and maybe the African country and African states will pay the biggest price regarding the issue of climate change. Mr. Wasim Magaliwa, the Tanzanian Prime Minister, most welcome, sir. How do you see these climate changes and how it will affect agricultural and water resources in Africa? شكرا جزيلا أصحاب المعالي. في الواقع الجامعة فخامة الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي، الجامعة الموقر، الضيوف الكرام، أنني في واقع الأمر
On the theme COVID-19, a warning to humanity, a new hope. On behalf of Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of United Republic of Tanzania, who due to other engagement could not participate in this year's edition of the new Youth Forum. Your Excellencies, the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 continue to demonstrate the need to act collectively, especially considering the needs of most developing countries whose implementing rate of sustainable development goals has been diminished. Like in many other countries in the world, the pandemic resulted in the slowdown of business and increase of cost of material inputs for manufacturing and construction, increased pressure on health centers, increase in government burden to recover the economy, and also paradigm shifting in the economy's outlook. These effects have not been affecting government only, but also the people, and most especially the youth whose daily lives have been disrupted. Hence, depending on the government strategies and the plan to prosper socially and economically. It has been 2 years since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are now on recovery phase. For most countries, especially in the African continent, the recovery has not been easy, given the fact that the majority are developing economies with a few resources for recovering as compared to major economies in the developed world. Your Excellencies, Tanzania has been following closely the past 3 editions that have gathered youth around the globe to exchange views with the top decision makers and intellectuals on best alternative in tackling challenges facing our world, enhancing peace development, as well as encouraging creativity and innovation. As we come together again this year, after a disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, I am indeed encouraged see that the World Youth Forum remains a formidable platform in which young men and women of all credit and background are empowered to air their views and engage with the policymakers, make our world a better place for everyone. It is therefore imperative that we accelerate our collective effort towards achieving a future with health and well-educated youth that are living in a robust and developed economies. Your Excellencies, regardless of the challenges, the world needs to remain alert and continue monitoring the global situation for the pandemic, including efforts and responses to curb this deadly virus, which is expanding the scope of vaccination worldwide. Similarly, we have to note that youth constitute a considerable portion of the global population. Therefore, it remains crucial that whatever recovery effort we embark on, youth aspirations have to be taken on board and be regarded as partner for those efforts to sustain. In addition, may I call for joint efforts with the African Union, United Nations, and other regional agencies and other stakeholders to put in place comprehensive policies and strategies to overcome these challenges by, among other things, continuing cooperation amongst developed and developing countries in various aspects such as trade, security, health, agriculture, technology, and infrastructure. Distinguished delegates, as I conclude, I wish you all fruitful and action-oriented deliberation that will give due attention to the hopes and aspirations of youth in addressing challenges of peace, development, and enhanced activity among youth, which are key to achieving sustainable development. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Prime Minister of Tanzania, Mr. Qasim Majaliwa. Now I will return to our guest, Dr. Shamma, the Minister of Youth of the United Arab Emirates. You have an experience. United Arab Emirates has an experience in enabling youth. Tell us more about this experience. How could you advise the leaders of the world to engage the youth in the current pressing issues? Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, dear attendees, the August gathering, peace and prayers be upon you. Before starting, I wish to thank Your Excellency President Abdelfattah El-Sisi to come to our second homeland, Egypt. I tell you no secret, Egypt has a very special place in our hearts. As the offspring of Sheikh Zayed, we always head towards Egypt with our emotions before any other consideration. I recall what our father said, that the Renaissance of Egypt is a renaissance for the whole Arab world. Egypt is our heart, and in our hearts, I will be talking to you about the challenges that the whole world is facing with COVID. It is an opportunity to reflect on the change, to reflect on what we considered as for granted, and now we discover that everything is open for change. We need to change everything, the way we deal with the life, work, education, our health, our planet. I'm telling you that because COVID taught us that we need to challenge the fait accompli, to challenge the status quo. For us as individuals, for us as peoples, for us as civilizations, this is the policy of the United Arab Emirates. This is the policy of our leaders, how to challenge the fait accompli, how to challenge the traditions. I will give you a glimpse on how do we challenge the conventional ways of thinking when it comes to youth. Our question now as decision makers in United Arab Emirates is how the world youth, the 4.3 billion youth, can fulfill their potentials and the utmost of their aspirations. We explored the topics of this forum, such as fighting poverty, the climate change issues, and the psychological and economic implications of COVID, and the challenges in the field of education. How can we overcome such challenges without engaging the half of our societies, the youth? For this end, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid started a state-of-the-art change when it comes to the youth. It's not only about appointing a young minister, but rather starting a full system where the youth are taking the lead. You can see this as risk. However, the leadership of the United Arab Emirates did not see this as a risk. We had a clear, well-defined vision. We thought of youth as potential opportunity. I will give you bullet points of what we have focused on. The first step was separating the youth and sports sector and the two sectors of youth and sports, and focusing on both of them separately, because the power and energy and potentials of youth are not limited to sports. The leadership addressed the enabling of the youth capacities to achieve our aspirations. His Highness also started a youth movement throughout the state, not only through the ministry, but rather through starting a youth unit or entity within every single agency or ministry. We started the United Arab Emirates Council of Youth to voice the thoughts and ideas of the youth in every single ministry and entity. Later on, we launched more than 40 initiatives only to listen to the ideas and voices of the youth, to enable them and to engage with them. Then we had an enabling environment, fully holistic environment for the youth that will focus on investing on the potentials and capacities of the youth. Every single young man or woman in United Arab Emirates will enjoy safety, security, health, and ability to lead the future. 3 months ago, the Prime Minister of United Arab Emirates adopted a national agenda as the first scientific benchmark to enable youth to decide and to follow up our progress in enabling the youth. Now, the enabling of the youth is a state of the our policy. After this very long trip throughout the past 5 years and challenging the fait accompli, where are we now? Now, in 2021, we have compiled the First and March color every year to survey the opinions of the Arab youth, and this study resulted that 90% of the United Arab Emirates believe that the future is better compared to 70% throughout the rest of the Arab world. This means that the youth in our region are filled with hope, despite all the negative challenges of the pandemic. However, the hearts of our youth are still pulsing with youth. The very same survey in 2016 resulted in 40% of the Arab youth concerned about the extremist ideologies as the biggest challenge. In 2021, even the term extremism is not on the agenda of the priorities of the Arab youth. This is a proof, a showcase that dedication is the future, and work, dedication and work are the future of the youth. I will give you the very simple equation on which the leadership of the United Arab Emirates gave a very simple step. Engaging youth plus engaging youth
plus youth action. وبصراحة هاي مش صدفة أن هالجلسة عنوانها الأمل.
It is not a coincidence that hope is the title of this session, because hope is the core of facing the challenges. The implications and effects of COVID created a new normal, a new world, a term that we heard more than 10 times so far in this forum. The United Arab Emirates model is a new normal for the engaging of the youth. This forum is a new normal. Youth are there in every single session on the very same table with the decision makers. No policies for them without engaging them, no programs, no plans to be implemented without a real engaging and real involvement of the youth. This is our message. Our destiny is the same. We have to make sure that the needs of our youth shall be fulfilled. The voices of the youth are well heard, well received. Their involvement, their participation is effective and successful. Together we are going to build for the future of the world youth. Thank you very much. Now we will move to a recorded message from Mr. Fu Jibang, the Deputy Chair of the Chinese Youth Association, as a representative of the President of Chinese President. معالي السيد
President of the Arab Republic of Egypt. Dear young friends, I'm so happy young leaders from all over the world at the 4th World Youth Forum at the beginning of the new year. On behalf of the All China Youth Federation and all young people of China, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to President Abdelfattah El-Sisi for your kind invitation, and my warm greetings to young friends participating in this forum. The world is undergoing changes unseen in a century. Young people today face compound challenges in many areas, like health, education, employment, and engagement. Last September, at the 76th session of the UN General Assembly, President Xi Jinping proposed the Global Development Initiative that gives priority to development by a people-centered approach and advocates inclusiveness and global partnerships to address the development gaps among countries. The initiative has been echoed by the world. China will move forward together with all young people of the world along the path of the Global Development Initiative towards common prosperity for all. Young friends, China has the second largest youth population in the world. President Xi has pointed out that the great cause of the Communist Party of China and the country depends on the young people. In other words, the development of young people is a top priority. Giving priority to youth development has become a national consensus, and many actions have been taken. In 2017, the Chinese government released the first medium and long-term youth development plan 2016 to 2025, with clear goals action plans and key programs in 10 major areas, including education, health and well-being, marriage, employment, and entrepreneurship, social integration, and civic participation. Thanks to the support of the government and the entire society, Chinese young people will continue to develop faster and faster. Young friends, youth is always a key force to maintain world peace and drive common development. Hereby, I would like to make 3 proposals on behalf of the Chinese youth and youth organizations. First, let's work together to uphold and practice true multilateralism and improve the global governance system. Today's world needs win-win cooperation rather than zero-sum games more than ever. Together, we must work to build a community with a shared future for mankind, defending the international system with the United Nations at its core, and the international world underpinned by international law. Young people from all countries must handle international affairs of their interests through consultation in order to truly grasp the future of their own development. Second, let's further promote the exchange of experience in youth development and build a global consensus around youth development as a priority. Young people face various challenges. Their development goals depend on their own efforts, but the care and support of governments and societies around the world are indispensable. The world needs to promote exchange and mutual learning from success stories of youth development. Encourage governments and societies to attach importance to young people. Prioritize youth development and create a youth-friendly environment. Third, young people around the world should pursue greater solidarity and cooperation and contribute their collective wisdom and strength to global development. Young people are the most creative driver of development, as they shoulder the responsibility to realize the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Young people must use the power of technology advances and the Industrial Revolution and push forward global development with relentless innovation. China is ready to deepen cooperation with the world's young people in fighting against COVID-19 and poverty, coping with climate change and digital economy, bringing the world to a balanced, coordinated, and inclusive future. Young friends, history is always moving forward. Our choices and actions today determine the future of the world. May young people from all over the world join hands to promote friendship and cooperation to realize peace, development, fairness, justice, democracy, and freedom for all, to build a community with a shared future for mankind, and to create a brighter future. Young friends, Egypt is a great nation. The World Youth Forum, initiated by Egypt, has played an important role in promoting youth development worldwide. I wish this forum a complete success. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Mr. Moratinos, today we are here gathered with young people from all over the world. How can we consolidate solidarity, dialogue, and tolerance amongst all civilizations in the present day and in the post-pandemic world?
Thank you very much. Let me start by expressing my deep gratitude to the President, Abdelfattah El-Sisi, President of the Arab Republic, Mr. President. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this fantastic gathering. And expressing my thanks also to address myself to such important audience, important dignitaries, head of state, prime minister, foreign minister, ambassadors, but overall, to share my thought to this young generation, to these young representatives that are here today here in Sharm el-Sheikh. I think we owe them the opportunity to really have this, I think, extraordinary opportunity to have this intergenerational dialogue. Being in Sharm el-Sheikh, Mr. President, for me is a special moment. What I call this city of peace. I've been here in many occasions in my previous capacities, when Egypt has been a real catalyzer for peace between Palestinians and Israelis. So it's hard to my, to my feelings and my really personal experience to be sharing this panel with all of you. So let me start by praising your leadership and vision, Mr. President. I can imagine in 2016, 17, when you have this idea, this visionary idea, most of your advisors or people will say, well, President, it's going to be challenging. It's not going to be easy. Today, here in Sharm el-Sheikh, back together, we can see that has been a success. It has been an initiative that brings us together in this intergenerational dialogue. Why I'm insisting in this concept of intergenerational dialogue? Because what we are looking when you see today's situation, you see young people in the street, protesting, criticizing, revolting. It's part of your job. We are being young. And what we are, the decision maker, we are in our offices, looking to the screen, making in our closed room, don't understanding why this youth is protesting. So there is a kind of rupture between this part of societies and ourselves. So what is your vision, Mr. President? Your vision is to bring all together here in Sharm el-Sheikh in order that they have their voice to us, we listen to them, but then also listen to us. They also take note of our experience, of how we have been trying to overcome certain circumstances and certain difficulties in our life. That is what is needed today in this complex world, that we, all elements of society, in an inclusive way, can talk together. So today's panel, after COVID-19, what is the lessons we have to take? And you mentioned in the opening session, very well done. We have to take some lesson. We have to change our pattern of thinking, our methodology to work, and that is part of that. I think there is many youth conferences around the world, but this one is when you put together the, let's say, decision maker, elders, and young people trying to understand each other. So COVID-19, as you mentioned in your speech and your commentary, has, of course, a health dimension, has economic consequences, a financial consequence, a cultural consequence, technological consequence, but it's had a human consequences. Humanity is part of the center of the crisis. And I think it's where the United Nations Alliance of Civilization have taken stock what has happened during this, let's say, 2.5 years. What we have seen, I think COVID-19 has put us in a kind of moral test. At the beginning, we were even hopeful. We were very satisfied because we saw people applauding in the balconies, showing a kind of solidarity. We thought that we were going to change. And immediately we realized that that was not true. Everybody was with fear. Everybody was escaping. Everybody was excluded. Everybody was marginalizing. Everybody was taking care of themselves and not taking of the collective, future of our all humanity. And we have seen as it has happened with vaccination and how the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, was extremely engaged to denounce this lack of solidarity that has been missing in these two years. So the Alliance of Civilization tried to bring in people together, to try to understand that we are a one humanity and that we have to create a new society. And with youth is our main platform. Because, my dear friend, I mean, that some people have said already, and even the Spanish actors, here this morning, they said, yeah, you are the future. No, you are not the future, my dears. You are the present. And we have to take you in board. And I think that's what we have to do. And that's the reason Secretary General Antonio Guterres, in this new common agenda, the reform of the UN, as we have said, and you say, President, in your last speech in the UN in September, we have to take into stock how the new generation take part of this reform. And I think one of the main elements, the main contribution of the proposal of Secretary General Antonio Guterres, that he has put already the youth as a specific new element in order that they are not consulting after. They are going to take part of that. So I know that we have been listening to many discourses, but just to close and to conclude, I think I saw two main challenges of today in this very challenging world that we are confronting us. The one that we all agree and we have seen and we have been working, we have been fighting is to save the planet. And we all agree. But the second task, even for me more important, is to save the humanity. Because we can have a green planet, we can have a beautiful air, but if we cannot live together, if we cannot really respect each other, if we cannot really recognize that many cultures, many religions, many civilizations, that we have to live for the future of mankind, what kind of life we are going to have? Okay, we will be in Manhattan will be, East River will be green, the Danube will be blue, and how we are going to live because you are a Christian, or you are Muslim, or you are Jewish. So that is what I think the youth of today have to understand. And I think you say that in your speech in New York in this September, when you address the 76th General Assembly ministerial meeting, when you say, let's join forces to save ourselves before it's too late, using reason instead of power, quote unquote, President Abdelfattah El-Sisi. Thank you very much.
سعادة السفير كوهين سفير الولايات
Your
المتحدة
Excellency, U.S. President,
العلم كان شيء محوري وجوهري.
science has been an integral part of this ordeal. It has been the hero. To what extent did the coordination was with regards to making vaccinations available?
Well, thank you. And first, I want to also thank President El-Sisi for inviting me to participate in this panel. I was an attendant at the last World Youth Forum in 2019, and I was very impressed by the inspirational young people I met then, and I'm delighted that we can be back together this year. The work that we've done together with Egypt to mitigate the effects of COVID-19 has been part of a very broad and deep strategic partnership that we have between our two countries. And over these past 2 years, in partnering to mitigate the effects of COVID-19, the U.S., for its part, has, in partnership with COVAX, provided over 16 million doses of Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccine to Egypt. Our two governments have also been working together since the beginning of the pandemic to help each other limit the spread of the virus. Apart from the vaccines, the U.S. government has contributed over $50 million to helping Egypt mitigate COVID through various kinds of assistance and relief. And we recently donated 2 mobile medical testing units and medical equipment to combat the virus here. I also want to highlight that at the very beginning of the pandemic, Egypt demonstrated remarkable generosity donating medical equipment to the United States. And I want, again, to thank President El-Sisi and the people of Egypt for that. But I should also say tackling COVID isn't the only crisis we're working on together. We're also engaged together in the struggle against climate change, where bold action to tackle the climate crisis is more urgent than ever. The U.S. is trying to do its part, and President Biden has returned the U.S. to the Paris Agreement, committed to reduce U.S. emissions by at least 50% below the 2005 levels by 2030, and has pledged to double U.S. climate support for developing countries by 2024, and to triple U.S. contributions to adaptation finance. Egypt, too, is taking steps to address climate change by meeting an ever larger portion of its energy needs with renewable clean energy, as well as modernizing the oil and gas sectors. Egypt's ambitions to become a leader in green energy mean that new projects in power generation and transmission will be coming along. And we expect that we'll soon see, among other things, more energy efficient buildings, better management of critical water resources, and incentives for cleaner cars. And this is where U.S. companies, who've already enjoyed a strong presence here in Egypt, can help. U.S. innovation has already brought a lot of our companies to the forefront, helping to combat climate change. And I've made it a personal priority to encourage more such U.S. companies to invest in Egypt, highlighting the strong innovative pool of talent among Egyptian people, Egypt's strategic location, its promising economic perspectives, and its commitment to go green in its 2030 vision. I'm pleased that one of the great champions of combating climate change, U.S. Special Envoy John Kerry, will be offering remarks tomorrow at the World Youth Forum. And I'm hoping to welcome a green economy trade mission of potential investors from the U.S. to Egypt in the months ahead. So the United States government and the United States private sector are both looking forward to cooperating with Egypt as it hosts COP27 here in Sharm el-Sheikh later this year. Because we're here to talk about youth, I wanted to note that I've decided to start a U.S. Ambassadors Youth Council at the U.S. Embassy in Cairo. This council is going to consist of 10 young Egyptian leaders between the ages of 18 and 25 who are going to work together with me and my embassy team to address common issues as we strive to achieve a better shared future. We're going to harness their creativity to sharpen our focus on promoting peace and development. And the U.S. Ambassadors Youth Council is going to be made up of representatives from a range of sectors, including young Egyptian men and women working on climate change and environmental awareness, entrepreneurship and economic development, youth empowerment, cultural innovation, and civic leadership. There's so much that we can get from, as Miguel said, and I'm delighted to be on this panel with you, Miguel. We're old friends from time at the United Nations. But there's so much that we can get from working in this cross-generational space. And I think you said it very well. It's not that you are our future, you are the present too. And we need to work together. As you know, my national motto in Latin is e pluribus unum. It means out of many, one. It's on American currency, it's in America's heart, and I want to offer the thought that working together across generations, we can, as one common humanity, combat the crisis that we face in terms of COVID-19 and in terms of the climate and the other challenges that face us in the future as we work together to build a better tomorrow. Thank you.
فخامة السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي بالتأكيد لو ليك تعقيب على ما جاء.
President Abdelfattah El-Sisi, of course, you have some comments to what had been mentioned today and what is the importance of the return of this forum today and taking all necessary precautionary measures for this forum. Thank you. Thank you for the participation and through the speeches that have been presented by their excellencies, the presidents and prime ministers, and those who participated with us and enriched the forum and enrich the topic that we are dealing with. But as you can see, that we are all agreed that despite the ordeal of the pandemic all over the world, but it shed light on the importance of increasing our communication and to increase our preparedness in order to, in fact, for the young people to have more accessibility and to be more active participants in our life. We also addressed that during the pandemic. In fact, maybe I didn't want to talk about this point regarding vaccination as a topic and how it has, in fact, an impact all over the world, and some countries had the opportunity to have the vaccines and others were not able to provide the vaccines for their people. But this also shed a light on the importance of international collaboration in facing the challenges in a more fair manner and not to be related to economic capacities, even scientific and technological capabilities and capacities. I said before at the beginning of this pandemic that the world post-pandemic will be different from before. And this is what I see, that we are moving towards this point. And I would like to, in fact, talk to our young people. In fact, we will not be able to know every impact of the pandemic. Maybe this will be for years to come. Maybe it will increase or decrease. But of course, we'll be seeing the impact and the outcome of the pandemic. And we will find out that it will have positive impact despite our sufferings and despite the ordeal that we faced during the pandemic and the crisis. I would like to say that we in Egypt, in fact, we were not afraid of COVID. And we have a gathering of young people from all over the world. And if you would have seen the Egyptian people, how they dealt with the COVID, yes, we took our precautionary measures. And yes, of course, we had a surge for vaccination, but work did not stop in Egypt for a minute. This is what I would like to say and to focus and to underline. Work did not stop in Egypt for a minute, because this is what I would like to say at the end. Despite of the ordeal and the crisis, we shouldn't stop, and life shouldn't stop. Life should go on. Life will continue, and we will overcome the impact of the pandemic fully and totally very soon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. Thank you, Your Excellency, President Abdelfattah El-Sisi, and thank you for all the august gathering and our dear guests.